everybody. Today on the Chrissy B Show, we're going to be talking all about getting in control of your finances. So whether you've had money problems for a while and perhaps also made it a bit worse over Christmas, or whether you've recently become unemployed or been made redundant and are worried about the future, the show today will aim to help you not to worry, not to get stressed. My guests tonight are Justin Basini, brand marketer and founder of iAllow, and also self-development coach Chris Browne. So if you want to get in touch during the show, if you want to ask a question, anything like that, you can give us a call on 020 7686 6300. You can also email Chris at chrissybshow.tv. So let's first introduce Justin to the show. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Nice to be back.
So it's lovely to have you here again. You always give great advice, Justin. So this is a particular time of the year, the beginning of the year, where people are quite worried because, you know, maybe they were hopeful for this new year. They thought, okay, we're going to get a job this year. I'm going to, you know, get myself back on my feet. But they've also incurred lots of debts over Christmas.
That's right.
And they're very worried. They're completely out of control, it seems.
Yeah.
So what advice?
Well, about a third of us over Christmas will have got into some sort of debt. And January is the time when...
That's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah. Well, I mean, Christmas can cost hundreds of pounds, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't have it, it's difficult. There's a lot of pressure. And January is the time when often people say to themselves, okay, I'm going to take a little time here to sort of try and get back on a even keel and start to have a look at, you know, what I want to do and what I want to achieve this year. And the same advice for any sort of goal setting goes for your finances. So the first thing to do is to take a step back and have a look at your finances. About half of us don't even look at our bank statements, believe it or not.
That's terrible.
Yeah, because it's too frightening or don't understand them or it's too boring to go through and analyse it all. About half of us don't look at it. So first thing to do is just gather all that information together.
I check about every 2 or 3 days.
Well, good for you. Is
that normal or is that a bit obsessive?
Maybe a bit obsessive. You know, my wife checks every day. You know,
oh, every day, so she's worse than me.
Right, make sure that we're all on top of stuff. But basically the first thing to do is collect all that information together. So your bank statements, your credit card statements, even your pay slips, that sort of thing, because often people don't really understand, you know, how much is getting taken away in tax and that sort of thing. So gather all that information together and then set yourself some goals. So be able to say, you know, what do I want to achieve this year? Do I want to get out of debt? Do I want to save a little bit of money? Do I want to save up for that holiday? So that's really the first thing, is to set some goals, because by setting goals, you're much more likely to achieve what you want to achieve.
But the best one is to clear the debts first, right?
Absolutely.
Before you start thinking about holidays.
So that's the first thing you need to do. So if you are in debt, the first thing you really need to do is get a plan to get yourself out of debt. And the thing is, you know, when we're brought up, especially, you know, brought up in the UK, the education that we get around managing money, managing debt and credit cards and whatever is really, really bad. Kids, you know, probably when I went to school, we weren't taught any of that stuff. And so actually, you know, it can be a bit mystifying and it can be a bit, you know, confusing and worrying, and people can get really wound up about it. Really, the best thing to do is just to collect all that information together and start to structure it and start to put it down into ways that you can actually start to look at everything that's coming into the house. So all the things that you earn, and not your gross pay, but your net pay, you know, the stuff that you actually get in, you know, every month into the bank account or, you know, in a check or whatever. And then all the things that go out. So having a look at your bank statements and having a look at all the direct debits, the standing orders, everything that you're paying for, all the money that you spend, and then starting to sort of categorise the money that is coming in and going out in the house. And so not doing it in a really complicated way. The way that I always suggest is basically to split it into 3 categories. So the first category is stuff which is essential to your life. So not hard to think about what those things are. It's the food that we eat. It's the heat into the house. It's probably transport, going to work. You need to be able to get to work. It's some sort of stipend for clothing and things like that. You need shoes on your feet. And you need
not the heels?
Yeah, probably not, you know, your Louis Vuitton bag or things like that. But, you know, the really important stuff for the kids maybe. You know, so making sure that you've got those real essentials for life. And that's the first thing that you need to really understand. Understand how much you're spending on that and whether you've got anything left over after you've spent all those essentials. If you have got something left over, then you can start to look at all the other things that you spend on, which are the second bucket is makes my life better. So that might be entertainment, you know, going to the movies
Meals.
or meals out, going down the pub, having a few drinks down the pub, you know, buying those nice things, those treats, you know, food that is, you know, a bit more luxurious, that sort of thing. And that's the second bucket, which is makes my life better. And that's important. You know, we should always have a little bit of that if we can afford it. And then the third bucket is everything else, really. So it's luxuries, it's all the discretionary spend that we have, you know, going out and spending on, you know, clothes that you maybe don't need, you know, electronic equipment, you know, iPads and iPhones and all this sort of stuff.
This is a necessity, Justin,
well,
for me.
Exactly.
I have to show.
For somebody like you, I'm sure it is. So you've got your three buckets: essential to life, makes life better, and then everything else. And you need to look at the amount of money coming into the house and how much you can afford of all that essential to life, because that's the really important stuff. And then all the stuff that you can afford in makes life better. And if you can't afford it, then you've got to try and cut it out. Yeah. And that's the hard decisions, isn't it? To be able to say, actually... Especially
when you're used to having a certain standard of living and you're used to spending money on those things, it's really hard to sort of say, okay, well, actually, you have to cut down. Yeah. But you have to grow up as well and realise that you have a problem and you need to sort it out.
You have to grow up. And also the way to do it is to make it easier for yourself. So, you know, let's say you have something that you spend every month. You know, you want to go to the cinema, or you want to, I don't know, go and do something that you do every month. And you say, well, actually, I'm not going to do that. Now, if you say to yourself in January, I'm not going to do that for the rest of the year, makes you feel terrible. Yeah. So what you can do is you could say, okay, for the next 2 months, I'm not going to do it. And then in the third month, I'm going to treat myself and I'm actually going to do that. Now, you're 2 months better off because of that. Yeah. And if you can make those little decisions across everything that you spend, you're starting to manage that money a little bit better, starting to generate some excess money that you can use to maybe pay down your debts. Yeah. Okay. So that's the thing to do, which is split everything into the three buckets. Then what I recommend is that you look at your bank account. And often, especially in the internet, where we're all signing up to these things and we're putting our credit card details in and things like that, there are loads of things that potentially you might be paying for that you don't actually need. Yeah. That Spotify account, you know, to get your internet radio at $9.99 a month that you felt flush 6 months ago and you signed up for that. Do you really need it now? Do you really use it? And actually, if you can cut a few of those things, so look at your direct debits and your standing orders, if you can cut a few of those things, that could amount to a few £100s a year.
We did that once, my husband and I, because we had this, I forgot what it's called, Love Film. We had the subscription. I think it was only like $4.99 a month, but we had no time to watch DVDs at the time. Right. So I said to him, why don't we just sort of like cancel it? We could start again if we ever have time to watch anything. And like it went on for a long time, and it was just like we were just paying money for no reason. So in the end, we cut it. Still like saved us a bit of money over the year.
That's right. Well, it's £60, isn't it? £5 a month, that's £60.
Exactly.
So if you've got 3 of those, that's £180. Yeah. Starts to add up, starts to make things a bit easier. And the key thing is you're taking control. Yeah. You're in control of all the things that are coming out of your bank account, and that's the really important thing. And you should feel good about that. Yeah. And then what I would say is start to root around for what I call extra money. Go down the back of the sofa. Have a look whether somebody's, you know, dropped £1, dropped £5. Sounds silly, but there are lots of little things that you can do to actually
I don't think it sounds silly at all, because I do that sometimes.
It's a few pounds, right? It maybe isn't going to make a massive difference, but, you know, it's a few more pounds in your pocket.
Yeah, exactly. And old handbags, jackets.
Right, exactly.
Jeans.
And that also extends to things like, have you got any stuff that you want to sell on eBay, for example, or selling it, you know, going down, you know, even car boot sales, things like that. Anything that you can do, especially if you're in debt, anything you can do to raise, you know, tens of pounds, hundreds of pounds by selling stuff that you're not using, that's just sitting on a shelf or sitting in the bottom of a cupboard, could really make a difference. And of course, every pound that you generate there, and you put it over to paying down a debt, you're paying off interest. And so that's making sure all the time that you're paying it down. And so over the years, that's going to make a huge amount of difference. So anything that you can do to do that. Then the other things you can do to go down the back of the sofa, as I say, which is look at all your utility bills. So when was the last time you changed utility supplier? You know, your gas and electricity supply.
Long time.
Long time, right? Chances are you'll get a better deal. Yeah. So if you go on to, you know, some of the price comparison sites, you know, Money Supermarket or USwitch, or there are loads and loads of them. Go to them, go to 2 or 3 of those, put your details in and see whether you can save money. Chances are, if you haven't changed for a few years, you can save, you know, at least tens of pounds, maybe even hundreds of pounds, just by being a bit savvier. Car insurance, home insurance, all those things that we pay for every year. The way
with my phone, actually, I've got that down in my diary to do.
Perfect example. The way those business models work, the way those companies work, is they give you a fantastic deal up front because they know that half of us aren't going to change it. So they're going to change. You're going to be with them for a few years, and because they ramp the prices up at the back end, you make them a lot of money. So you've got to play the game. Yeah. It's a bit of a hassle, you know.
They actually put my tariff up the other day. I think it was by £5, and I keep meaning to question it because I don't know why they've done it, and they didn't ask my permission.
And the chances are, if you call them and you complain, they'll remove that.
Remove it, okay.
That's the thing.
That tomorrow. That's in my diary.
That's the thing.
Okay.
You've got to take action. You've got to pick that phone up and start to bargain with them. Okay. Sky TV, give them a call. Yeah. Try it, you know. Oh, I'm going to move to Virgin, or I'm going to, you know, and the chances are they'll try and do you a deal, and you'll save a bit of money.
But the companies love us right now. Sorry, we're just trying to help people.
Exactly. Well, the thing, you know, it's your money coming out of your pocket. You know, you're still their customer, right? You're still paying them every month. You're just paying them a bit less.
Yeah. Okay. So for people like, for example, you're saying, we were talking earlier in the green room actually about how some people are afraid to kind of look at their accounts and they don't sort of want to know. And you were saying something quite interesting, that sometimes it's the way the person's brought up. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. Well, that's true. You know, we all have role models in our lives, and you know, the environment that we were brought up in, you know, maybe dad managed the finances or maybe mum managed the finances. But, you know, the thing is that, you know, we aren't really educated on how to manage our finances. You don't have a lesson at school that says, you know, work out how debt works. And of course, credit card companies and loans are always, and loan companies are always there saying you can get free, easy money, easy money, easy money, easy money. So the temptation is there. And so what you need to do is you need to basically get in control. And it's not hard, you know, actually to understand what you're spending, what you're earning, and start to just do a little bit of writing down on it. You don't need an Excel spreadsheet or anything like, you don't need to be a computer expert, right? You just need a piece of paper and you just write down everything that you're spending and everything that you're earning, and start to do a few different calculations to make sure that you're in control of your money. It's your money. You've earned it, right? You should be in control of it.
To be confident about it as well, because even if you haven't grown up sort of knowing about money and knowing how to, you know, control finances, but you can always learn. Just because you weren't taught it, just because you say you're not good at it, but you can become good at it because you need to. That's right. You need to, definitely, don't you?
Yeah, and there's a lot of advice out there. You know, if you can get to an internet connection, get to a computer, you know, there's a huge amount of sites out there that can give you really great advice and have lots of different calculators to work out how much interest you're going to pay and whether you should pay stuff down, and which debts to pay off first. That can often confuse people. Minimum payments versus, you know, all those sort of things. Financial industry, banks, very, very good at confusing you, at making you sort of not understand the different terms, APR, interest, all this sort of thing. And actually just taking a few steps and reading a few things online, and there's a lot of good resources out there, can help you take control.
And you know, Justin, you were telling me about some, we're not going to tell them now, wait till after the break, but you know, some fantastic websites and organisations that you can go to that will actually really, really help you. So do stay tuned for that. And also we're going to be speaking about the emotional effects that having money problems can cause, because you know, it's all well and good sort of giving lots of advice about what you need to do, but if you don't have that strength inside of you to actually do it, it's very difficult, because once someone starts to feel down, once someone starts to feel afraid to even pick up the phone and sort things out, you know, they can't physically do anything anymore. They're just like sort of there, and the problems are getting worse and they're not doing anything about it. So we're going to be talking more about the emotional effects and what you can do to combat those, to get back on top of things as well. So join us after this break, and if you do want to send an email, you can do so on chris@chrissybshow.tv, and you can also call 020 7686 6300. And don't forget, if you want more information about the show as well, chrissybshow.tv. See you after this break.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back, and if you've just joined us, we're talking about getting back in control of your finances. Now, we had some great tips from Justin in the first part, and he's here with us again to talk about a few other things as well as the emotional effects. Now, I know firsthand sort of what it's like to have money problems. Although I was never really in serious debt, but I remember a time in my life where I was literally just, you know, the money that I was getting, I was literally just paying bills and had very little left over, and it's worrying, and you don't have a good quality of life, and you can get quite down because of it. But there are ways that you can get yourself back out of that and in control and, you know, having a good financial life. So it's not wrong, you know, some people think, oh, you know, it's not good to have a lot of money, it's, you know, it can corrupt you, but it depends what kind of person you are. You can make money work for you rather than the other way around. But say you are going through money problems at the moment, say you're unemployed or you are in debt. Now, we've got some points here from the NHS website, and they're talking about how it can affect you and how it can distress you emotionally. Now, these points here, they do actually refer to other areas of your life as well, but since we're talking about finances, there's 3 things that you have to look out for to see whether you are getting, you know, the problems are getting to you too much. So it can change, for example, the way you feel physically. So perhaps you're not sleeping well anymore. You know, you lay your head down on your pillow and your mind is constantly on the money problems or on the debt. So how am I going to pay this off? And you don't get a good night's sleep. So obviously if you don't get a good night's sleep, the next day you're not going to be able to think clearly, are you, to even sort anything out in the first place. So it affects you physically first of all. And also sometimes people even lose their appetite and they cry all the time as well. I don't know about the men. I think men do as well, actually. They just hide it better, don't they? Yeah. So it can also affect, you know, so the kind of routines that you have. So maybe now, instead of waking up early, you're getting up quite late, and you know you're out of that routine that you used to have. So you're getting up late, you're missing breakfast. So even your eating habits are changing, and without you even realizing, you're actually getting to be quite unhealthy. You're affecting your health as well as, you know, the financial problems as well. So imagine that now, you know, you've got money worries, and now on top of things, your health's getting affected. And of course, if you're not healthy, it's going to be quite difficult to find a job as well. And also, you know, this is a key one as well, it affects the way that you think. So if you are worried, if you, for example, have lost your job, a common thought that will come to a person's mind is, oh, how come I was the one that lost my job? How come I was the one that got made redundant and not my friend that works? I've been there longer than my friend, and yet I'm the one that lost the job. So you start to feel very unconfident about yourself. You start to think, I'm not good enough. You know, other people are better than me, and it's quite a hard situation to be in, isn't it, Justin?
That's right. Yeah, it destroys your confidence.
Yeah.
And you know, if you have lost your job, you need to be confident actually at that moment that you are going to find a job, and you can go out and in an interview you can really impress somebody. And so you need to work on that to make sure that you keep your self-esteem up, because otherwise it can be very difficult.
Well, here are a few tips that they've suggested on the NHS website, and we've added a few of our own, haven't we, as well, Justin? So first of all, it's saying here, being more active means not withdrawing from life. So you should keep on seeing your friends. You should keep on doing the normal things that you would do, and don't start to withdraw from people, because that's the worst thing you can do. You need to keep up with a normal routine. If you start withdrawing from people, that's more time that you've got to think about problems. It's more time that you've got to sort of beat yourself up and stuff. So keep with the normal routines that you're doing as well. And also, even if you have lost your job or been made redundant, still try to keep paying bills somehow as well. Even if that's to raise money, like you were saying earlier, Justin, about selling things and doing things. Try to keep up with paying your bills and stuff so you don't get into more debt if possible. Now, also, it's saying here that you should also invest in exercise or getting fit for free, because that's going to also keep your mood up, because you know that we all know that exercise makes you feel better. So instead of staying in bed late, you know, wake up, do some exercise, as well as looking for a job, of course. Keep fit, keep yourself fit and healthy and strong as well.
That's right. And it's just simple things like getting out of the house and going for a little walk, taking some deep breaths. Even, you know, I remember talking to somebody, and he was a real expert in sort of stress. And he said one of the greatest stress relievers is just looking at the sky. And looking at the clouds and going for a walk, and actually just allowing yourself a little bit of time to sort of breathe and take a little stock, and just basically, you know, just be at one with yourself for a minute, whilst all these pressures are around you, to just give yourself that confidence.
Right. Definitely. Okay, and also it's saying here as well, routine is important. Oh, by the way, before I talk to that, they say as well, stay away from alcohol. Because a lot of people tend, when they're feeling like this, they tend to turn to the bottle, and it's the worst thing you can do. It's not going to solve your problems. It will make you feel better for a couple of hours, and then, you know, you could even develop an addiction because of that. So they're saying try to keep away from alcohol.
And alcohol can be quite expensive, of course.
Yes.
And so
definitely.
if you're spending part of your income, you know, on alcohol, that's money that could be spent elsewhere.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. Okay. And they're also saying routine is important. So even if you don't have to wake up in the morning to go to work anymore, like nice and early, you should still wake up anyway and get busy with things. So whether that's looking for another job or, you know, doing your exercise or something else, planning what you're going to do next as well, make sure you do keep to that routine so that you don't change everything about your life just because you've lost a job or just because, you know, you've been made redundant for any reason. So keep to that. And something we're talking about as well is that your family is very important at this time. Don't shut them out. And I think, Justin, you've got children, haven't you?
Yeah,
is it two
three
children?
children.
3 children.
Yeah.
So I think children understand a lot more than we give them credit for.
They
so
do.
I think it's important to, if you are going through money problems, to be honest with your children, because they understand quite a lot. And if you say to them, look, kids, you know, I'm sorry, but we can't afford these things right now. You know, we're going through a bit of a hard time. I think they'll be quite understanding. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I've had that in my own life. You know, as I've been setting up my own business, I went from a, you know, quite well-paid corporate job through to, you know, setting up my own business. And we've had to talk to the kids, especially my eldest two, who are 8 and 6, about the changes that we're going to have as a family that we've been going through over the last couple of years. And, you know, there are tantrums every so often, but generally they're very supportive of what I'm trying to do and what we're trying to do as a family. And I think actually going through that as a family and them seeing that is a really important lesson for them. I think they're going to benefit from that as they get older and as they become adults.
They're going to see that example from you and your wife.
That's right.
Okay,
role modeling.
For me to get anywhere in life, I need to make sacrifices.
Exactly.
So that's
make sacrifices
really important for them.
and push yourself and, you know, try and do something.
Yeah. And also the way that you relate to your partner as well, because if you are having all these worries, don't shut your partner out. That's the worst thing you can do. You know, you're going to start having like relationship problems if you start to do that. So keep the communication open. Talk about things. Tell your partner you're worried, you're feeling a bit low about yourself, and you know that's going to at least keep the two of you close. Because if you shut yourself off, especially if you've both lost jobs or you're both like having debts and everything like that, you're gonna just go further and further apart, and that's bad for the kids. It's bad for your relationship. So stick close to one another and talk about things. And if, for example, it's your partner that's lost a job, for example, don't discourage them. Because there's people that, you know, they say things like, oh, have you got a job yet? Oh, you lazy layabout, and why aren't you getting a job? But maybe the person's trying, but you sort of nagging at them or you complaining all the time isn't going to help them. You need to encourage them. You need to say, okay, you know, you tell them about the skills that they have. Tell them about the good things about themselves that they have, rather than
keep their confidence up.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
That's really hard, isn't it? to go through, especially if your partner's not supportive.
And I think it comes from the fact that you're probably a bit worried about it. You know, you want them to get a job, and you know you're worried the fact that they maybe don't have a job, etc. So it comes from your worry. So you don't they're going to be worried about it. You're worried about it. It's better to talk about that worry and become closer and share, rather than turning it into, well, why haven't you done that? And you know, you should be applying for this job and that sort of thing.
Nerves are a bit frayed at this time, aren't they?
Exactly.
Justin? So it's hard to like.
There's a lot of stress around, and so you've got to be able to sort of, you know, manage that and be able to come together as a couple, rather than, especially with finances, you know, often finances, especially if you've got credit cards in your own name, that sort of thing, it's often a very common thing that when couples don't have very, you know, openness around their finances, that's when a lot of things can start to happen. You know, people spend on credit cards, get the family into debt, and the other one doesn't really even know about it. And then finally it all blows up, and it's a terrible, terrible thing. So it's better to have it be as open as you can about these situations, and be able to, you know, be open with your finances on both sides. Maybe you have joint finances, maybe you don't, but at least you talk about the issues, you talk about what you want, and you come together as a family.
I think joint, I know this is a subject for another show, but I really like joint finances. I think it's strange when couples have separate accounts and everything.
I do as well. And
everything should be together. You're, you know, a couple. You're
greatest decision I ever made was let my wife manage all the finances, You know, I don't worry about it, and she's a million times better than I ever was at it.
It's great, rather than keeping separate lives. It's like almost keeping separate lives, isn't it, when things are separated. Anyway, that's a subject for another show. We can talk about another time. But the main thing is, don't let it get you down. I know there's lots of people going through it at the moment. There's loads of places that you can go to for advice and support. So if it's affecting you emotionally, for example, you feel that you're getting a bit depressed, speak to your doctor, speak to a counsellor, seek, you know, get help for that. But also, Justin, you were telling me about some really great websites as well, and organisations that people can go to.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really big thing, that if you are in debt, the natural thing, maybe because it's frightening and you're frightened of it, is to hide and to not talk and to, you know, not pick up the phone. And actually the best advice is, if you are in debt and if, you know, credit card companies or utilities companies are starting to come after you, best thing to do is pick up the phone and talk to them. They're very, very used to people not paying. You know, that's part of their business. And there's a lot of rules around how they have to respond to you and how they have to work through that with you. And so really, you've got to pick up the phone and you've got to start to work with them. Now, if you don't feel confident enough to be able to do that, then you can go to a place like the Citizens Advice Bureau. So Citizens Advice is a national organisation, and what they will really help you do is take you through a bit of the process that I've talked about, we talked about in the first half of the show, trying to get a bit of control, trying to put a bit of structure around your finances. And they'll even help you contact the people that you owe money to, so that you can start to have a conversation with them.
That's surprising when you told me that earlier, because I knew you could go to them for advice. I mean, everyone knows, they hear about the Citizens Advice Bureau, but I didn't know that they could actually, you know, pick up the phone for you and like help you through the process and be there with you every step. I didn't know that, and it's free.
Yeah, and it's free, and that's the key thing. And I would always recommend that you go to the Citizens Advice Bureau, or you go to free resources first. You know, if you put in lots of money into Google or into a search engine, you'll get lots of these companies like debt management companies or IVAs, debt management plans, all this sort of jargon and buzzwords. What those companies are there to do is to help you manage your debt, and in some cases they're good, but they're working for a fee. Okay, so they will put you down into a way of managing your debt that will make money for them. Sometimes it can be good, but better first to go to the Citizens Advice Bureau. There's also the Money Advice Service, which has just been set up by the government, which gives you lots and lots of advice there. Money Saving Expert is another website that has lots and lots of forums about how to get out of debt and money saving.
Mr.
Martin Lewis, fantastic.
Good,
you know, great advice there. And what I love is those forums where you've got hundreds of people talking about their experiences. Makes you feel really good, gives you lots and lots of tips.
You know, you're not alone then, because sometimes you can feel so isolated, so like, oh, I'm the only one that feels this way or that's going through this, but you're not.
That's right. And you know, when you owe somebody money, you do feel terrible, you know, potentially ringing them up and saying, well, I can't afford to pay you. But actually, if you do that, you're in a much stronger position, and they won't, you know, they're not going to shout at you or send the bailiffs in or whatever. They'll do that if you ignore it for months and months and months.
But it must be, no one likes to be ignored though, do they? Even companies.
Exactly.
No one likes to be ignored. So if you are ignoring the company, it's the worst thing you can do.
And you know, millions of people are in debt in this country, and you know, there are thousands and thousands of people that can't afford to pay back their debts, and so the whole banking industry has a process now where they will help you to work through how you can pay, and they'll put you on a debt management plan, and they'll do all those sort of things. So you shouldn't be frightened. Pick up the phone and talk to people. That's the most important thing.
Okay. Now, you've had one more point to talk about from before the break. I don't know if we've got a couple of minutes. Can you do it in 2 minutes?
I can try.
You can try.
This is called the debt ladder. Okay. So if you've got lots and lots of debts, you can either pay them down in one of two ways. If you want to save loads of money, so if you're a money saver, the best thing to do is always pay down your debts in order of interest. Okay, so if you've got the high interest ones and the low interest ones, put them into have a piece of paper, write a ladder on there. Let's call it the debt ladder, and you can put them all by size and by how much interest. And then you should always pay off, obviously, the one with the highest interest. Now, that works if you're a money saver. Works for some people. The other way of doing it, which I sometimes recommend, is that you put them in size order, starting with the smallest. Okay, so forget interest now, just put them in size order. So I owe this credit card company 50 quid, this one 100 quid, this one 1,000 quid, right? And you put them in. And what you do is you pay off the smallest first. Now that's really good if you want to get momentum, if you want to encourage yourself, because that 50 quid one, right?
I like to keep things off.
Right, that 50 quid one, you can tick it off after, you know, a couple of months maybe. So you tick that one off, bang, it's gone. Now I'm on to the next one. And as you move on to the next one, the key thing to do is to take the payment that you were making for that first one and add the minimum payment or more onto that second one.
So not to spend the extra that you've
That's
on
exactly
a new pair of shoes or like on going out.
That's exactly right. So you're keeping yourself motivated as you pay off these different debts. And that's the way to do it, is to basically tick them off and understand whether you're a money saver, do it by interest rate, highest first, or if you want more, if you're a goal setting person, you like to tick stuff off like you do, then put them in size order, starting with the smallest, and then you'll start ticking them off quite quickly, and you'll feel good about that, and you'll feel better that you're in control.
That's great advice, Justin. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
So the main thing is, guys, don't ignore your debts. Don't ignore the problem. There's always something you can do about it. Don't reach that point when you think that's it, my life's over, because it's not. There's help out there for you. There's great advice everywhere. So please do take it and get out of the rut that you're in.
That's it.
Because everyone can.
New year, new you.
Definitely. Thank you, Justin, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks.
Okay, and after the break, we're going to be joined by our resident development coach, Chris Browne. So join us after this.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show. I'm now here with Chris. Why is everyone smiling at me behind the camera? Sorry, I've got about 3 people standing behind the camera, really putting me... Oh, it's this camera, sorry. 3 people putting me off behind the camera, I'm looking at the wrong camera. Anyway, I'm here with Chris Browne now, and we're going to be talking... Well, we've finished talking about managing or getting in control of your finances, but this, what you're going to talk about, actually links to that as well, doesn't it?
It links very much to it. We're talking about managing your emotions. And when we talk about manage your emotions, I mean, just a while ago, as Justin was just mentioning about the different areas, and you said yourself how people actually react to losing out on their finances. It takes its toll emotionally. And when we're not in control of our emotions, there's lots of things and decisions that we make. To give an example, think about someone, their boss had a bit of a go at them about something they did. They cannot actually separate that this is about the work, it's got nothing to do with them, getting fed up with the whole situation. They end up saying one day, I'm going to leave this job, and they walk out. They walk out, and then they realise it's pretty hard to get another job. So in between that time, there's a reflection now thinking, why did I just walk out just like that? Probably felt liberated at the time, thought, great, I walked out of my job. But
it does feel good at the time to do something silly like that.
As if the whole company's going to fall apart because you walked out of the job.
Yeah, you really go, I've shown him, you know. But at the end of the day, you're the one left.
It's not good.
No
it's
job
not reality.
no money.
No job, no money. But the basis behind that, it was a decision made out of emotion. It wasn't something that we actually thought about. We started thinking, I'm going to react to this situation. And there's a lot of pain that goes with that. So over that, we're talking about being able to actually manage your emotions in a way that will put you more in control of your situations, put you ahead of the game, as well as just a better person in yourself as well.
So important, Chris, because while you're talking, as you're talking, I'm thinking about, I was very fiery.
Okay.
I had a very fiery temper.
Right.
I was very, a person that wouldn't think before speaking, mainly with my boyfriend at the time.
Right.
Whatever I had in my head, I would just blurt out and say. I used to get angry. I used to say all sorts of things. And it didn't ever help a situation. We were constantly arguing, you know, just because I basically would speak before I would think and say some awful things as well that really affected the relationship. But I learned with time that, you know, you can't just say everything that you think. You need to listen to the other person, you know, think before you speak. Don't just blurt out anything that you have in your head, because you always, because guaranteed anything you say out of anger is never going to help a situation.
No. most times it is a case of just an explosion inside, expressing yourself, but it's not the right way. And I'm sure, as you said, when you did that time with his boyfriend, did you think about it after you did it?
I used to feel guilty afterwards.
There you go.
And always regret what you said. It's like, okay, it's too late now, I've said it.
And that is
to live with the consequences.
Exactly. And we're talking about our sensible mind then. We've got a sensible mind who reflects back and says, this is what you shouldn't have done that, but it's too late. You've been tricked into it and you reacted, and that's that, right? Now, talking about managing your emotions, we're talking about where it's been coined as emotional intelligence, right? Emotional intelligence, EI. But to put it more direct, it was actually coined by a guy named Daniel Goleman, who's still around and has done very well with this. He's a psychologist who broke it down. And we went into many areas of looking at how we can actually manage our emotions and not get into the problems that we do get into. I mean, first of all, we actually got to recognize, right? Recognize the key word. Recognize your emotions. Recognize what is actually going on. Being able to recognize other people as well, like reading somebody's face. Being able to read somebody's words. Being able to read somebody's gestures as well. And these are simple things that we can do all the time. Not only about somebody else and getting a situation, about yourself as well. Because you've got to realize the sort of things that actually trigger off and say, oh, I'm going to have this explosion. Or the things that make us feel good as well. It's not always the negatives. There's things that you can trigger off that actually make you feel good and realize, well, look, I don't have to deal with it this way. I could deal with it that way instead of just reacting with your emotions, right? And then there's the other one, which is using your emotions as well. Now, using your emotions, you can actually use your emotions to solve a lot of problems. I was sitting over listening earlier on, I thought, this actually fits in exactly, you know. We're talking about finances, stress that goes with it. Are we really stressing because of the actual finance and a lack of it? Or are we stressing because we haven't used our emotions in a positive way in how to actually solve this situation? Now, when you sat down and talked about it, it was in a positive way and a way you can actually solve it. But there's a lot of overtime going on in the head about, oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if I get kicked out of my place? What if this, what? All the worst things, instead of thinking how I can actually sort this out. And back to the same thing you're saying, the communicating. Now, that is actually using your emotions in a positive way. Now, talking about using your emotions, let's go one bit further as well. Understanding emotions. All right. Now, to actually understand your emotion is similar back to what I was saying, understanding the stressors. When you understand your emotions and why you react the way you react, it's going to make you a lot better person. You know, the worst thing, I mean, I'll put my hand up on this, it's terrible driving. It's terrible when you're in traffic jam and you're driving, you want to get someone, I thought
you meant you were a terrible driver. Just is he telling me he's a bad driver? I didn't get it then, sorry.
Could you imagine all these people looking at, oh, that's Chris driving down there now. No, let's move out of the way. No, driving, just the stress of it as well and recognizing that. I always make sure that I've got quite a gap in front of the person behind me. Sorry, in front of me instead.
Me too.
Yeah.
I do that.
Didn't used to do it. I used to be driving there. I want to get ahead, but I realised, well, look.
My husband does that. It's so annoying.
Oh, it's terrible. Like it. And if you think about the person.
What if the person breaks suddenly? Like,
thank you very much.
I'm watching. Yeah.
No, I take a whole car back now and I just breathe and relax and realise, just a
I'll
whole car distance back. And you've got everybody else thinking, why does he move up a bit or try and creep in? I'm just relax now and take a few deep breaths and realise, well, that's one of my stressors, triggers. Can't think of anything else really that does it in any kind of way. But when we actually understand and recognise what our stresses are the ones that actually trigger off these emotions. So we become more manageable in the sense of managing these stresses. Here's the stressor coming at me. I can see the stressor coming at me. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. So I know it's a stress. I can see it straight off.
So this is good because a lot of people wouldn't actually take the time to sit down and think or even like to be more aware of what is triggering their stress. They will just get stressed, react in a bad way, get angry, regret what they've done or said, and then they just get more stressed because of they're thinking, oh, I'm a bad person because I've behaved in this way, and you start to regret it. But it's really good to actually see, okay, I react this way when, for example, this has happened, or I react this way for some ladies at a certain time of the month, or I react this way. So you analyse where you're going wrong and you can actually prepare for it.
And it's going to make you, as I said, it makes you a better whole person because if you can analyse where it's going wrong and prepare for it, when it's actually coming out and you can see it and you've dealt with it, you look back and think, wow,